You're wandering through the grocery store and you discover that they have filet mignon, beef tenderloin on sale, but they're selling it in a whole pack. What do you do? Well, I'm going to show you today on Greg the Grilling Guy. So let's talk beef tenderloin. The beef tenderloin comes from the tenderloin region of the cow, and typically the filet mignon tenderloin area comes from the very tip. And you can tell by the way it's shaped, how it tapers down at the end, that that's obviously where this cut has come from. Now this comes in 3 different grades. Like most beef, they have select, choice, and prime. Prime being the best, choice being the middle, and select. Select you're likely never to see in a filet mignon. The grocery stores are going to use that to grind up as ground beef or other things. So if you see a beef tenderloin at a grocery store, it's probably a choice. Prime you're going to have to go to the butcher for. Now that's based on the amount of intermuscular marbling that's in the meat. And I have to say that the difference between choice and prime, unless you go to a really good butcher, you're probably not going to see a big difference in that area. Now bringing this piece of meat home, I'm going to cut this up and use it in steaks. Now, some folks will take it and they will put it in the oven whole and they'll do a whole roast with it. I'm going to use these for individual steaks. So I'm going to cut this up into the steaks and freeze it. Now, if you vacuum seal this, you can freeze it. It'll stay good for probably around 6 or 7 months. It'll never last that long around here, but we are not going to consume it all in one night. Now, this is a 6.5 pound cut of meat. So I'm going to slice this up into individual steaks. You can see there is some white skin on here. You don't necessarily have to take that off. I'm going to just because, for a presentation, I don't necessarily want the white skin and the fat in the steak while I cook it. It just puts a bit more of a chew to it. So I'm going to clean this up. Again, not something you have to do at home. You obviously don't want to cut a lot off of this because you're paying $10 to $15 a pound for it. So make sure that when you do cut, you're just cutting off the little pieces that you don't necessarily want to have as part of the meat. Usually the butchers are pretty good. This isn't a fatty part of the cow, and so they trim these things up pretty tightly. I'm going to go through and clean kind of all the rest of the skin off, and I'll show you exactly how much I cut off in the end, but you'll see that it's not going to be much, and then we'll get into actually cutting this into steaks. There, we're done trimming the fillet, and as you can see, I didn't take a lot off. Most of what I took off there is just fat and silver skin. That's stuff that I don't necessarily want in there. Let me be perfectly clear, you do not have to take that meat off. It is simply fine to leave that on there. It won't impact the cook or the taste at all. You just get a little bit of a fat ribbon in there, which if rendered down properly is quite good. For presentation, I like to clean it up a bit. I do have a very sharp, a very nice knife that I use. It is very sharp. It's perfect for trimming this type of meat, or really trimming any type of meat with that. So if you don't have the tools, you don't need to worry about it. Now, what do we do with the rest of this fillet now that we have it here? Well, as I say, it is kind of a long, looks like a big snake, but it does have a thin tip at the end. You're not really going to be able to cut that into any usable type of meat. So what I like to do is cut it off. I'll take that, I'll cube it up, and I'll fry that up just before I serve the meat and bring it in as an appetizer. So just doing that in a cast iron pot, just a really quick flash, but it's probably medium to medium rare. That is going to be a delicious appetizer to go along with this. And it's making use out of a piece of the meat that you're not going to be able to cut into steaks. So we're going to cut that off right now. And through the magic of cameras, we've cleaned up all the discards. And what we have left is the meat we're going to cut. Now I'm going to butterfly these steaks, which is to say I'm going to cut them and then I'm going to cut down the middle and open it up. And that's just going to make a larger, fatter fillet, which is going to be great for eating. Obviously, it's a big meal at that point, so you've got the leftovers. We've talked about how to reheat the meat, but how thick you want them cut. For me, I like a fillet probably 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick, and then I'm going to butterfly that. So I have my dull-strung Pitmaster knife here, and I know this to be 1.75 inches thick. So what I'm going to do is lay that down along the fillet, flip it over, and just eyeball. That's going to be the cut that I'm going to make in on this steak. So as you can see, we now have a nice thick cut of meat, but I am going to butterfly these things. By butterfly, I mean I'm going to then line up the knife again. I'm going to flip it and cut probably 2/3 of the way through that steak, and then open it up and fold it. Now you can see you have a nice 1.5 inch thick, but a large steak. And that's really what I'm looking for to put on my grill. I'm going to continue this process all the way down the steak. And obviously they're going to get thicker as they go. So you're going to know your guests. You're going to know what their appetite is like, who the big eaters are, who the folks who aren't going to eat much. And you can let everybody choose their own steak. I do have those silicone bands that I will put around these things once they're cut. However, I'm not going to bother to go through that process just yet, because some of these are going to go into the freezer, and I don't want them being misshapen while they sit in the freezer. So you get the idea. I will finish up the cut all the way down. This bit that I talked about using for an appetizer, I'm just going to slice that and really cube it. Take that down. They don't have to be uniform. You're just looking for smaller pieces because, as I say, you're going to put these out on a tray with some toothpicks and just have folks come by and stab at them. So there you have it. That's my appetizer. I'm going to continue to fillet these out, and I'll show you how I'm going to seal these things to make sure that they stay fresh in the freezer for as long as possible. So let me finish this out and we'll pick it up at the storage. Now, before I get into storing these things, I just want to show you how the final cut looks. So I've got my end pieces for the appetizer burnt ends. I managed to get 4 steaks out of that butterflied, so you can see they're a lot larger. And then I did keep 2 that I didn't butterfly. That really came from the end where it was a thicker cut of meat. And obviously these are quite thick. These are probably 2 to 3 inches thick. They're going to be a different cook. But depending on how you want to cook your steak, or again, who you have coming over for dinner, I want to make sure I gave myself some options before I put these things away. So now we can see what they look like here. We'll move into storage next. While the camera was off, I took the fillets and I put them into these vacuum sealed bags. Now, if you don't have vacuum sealed bags, you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can just use a regular sandwich bag or a quart storage bag. The easiest way is to fill your sink with water, put them in the bag, put the bag into the sink to try to push as much air out as you can, and then seal it. Now for me, I have a food storage device because we do this type of thing all the time. Again, not necessary, but this will get loud, so I may have to deaden the audio for a moment. But I'm going to put this thing in, run it through the sealing process. And I will typically put a second seal line on there just to make absolutely certain that the bag is in fact sealed. And there you have it. No air in there. I will put a date on here so I know exactly when I sealed these things. I will toss them into the freezer, and like I say, you have 6 to 7 months before these things will start to turn on you. We're not going to take nearly that long. Now, you may say these things look a little bit flatter than when they were cut. That's because the air got sucked out. They were pushed down. Once you put an elastic band around them, they will come back to shape. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Now, you remember I mentioned about the fillets and bringing them into shape. I have these silicone food grade rubber bands that I bought off Amazon. I'll put a link to them in the description below. But here's one of the fillets that I butterflied. I'm just going to put that down and put that band around there. That's going to help it keep its shape while it cooks, but it also kind of plumps it up, and it's going to give it a much better appearance once it's done cooking. So we will shape that slightly with the band on. Now you can see this looks like a chubbier fillet. It's going to have that perfect round shape, and it will cook evenly because it's cooking in that round form. So these things, as I say, they're not edible, but they are food grade. So you can take them, you can cut them off before serving, or you can simply remind guests that they're on there, and they can just cut them with their knives. Not a big deal. Get that one just down into the perfect shape here. So there you have it. If you like what you see, please think about hitting like and subscribe. It certainly helps the channel out a lot. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I would love to answer them for you. Again, I will put a link to all the items that I use in the description below with links to Amazon. If you're going to order them, if you could order them through those links, that really helps the channel out. But until next time, folks, when you take these things out of the freezer and put them on the grill, remember, grill it real good.